I'm waiting for Joe to come back. Joe's maybe having some technical difficulties. But while we're doing that, Terry, tell us how your week was. How did God
Hey,
maneuver in?
hey, it was beautiful, man. Trusting God talking to me about how to trust his promises, man, and even going deeper than before, and know that when not when trouble comes, man, knowing that all is well. And
Yes.
and I've been, I don't know if you guys knew, man, I was about 3 years ago, I was about 320 some pounds.
Mhm.
And I started working out and eating better, and I had been on high blood pressure medication, and they tried to put me on all these other medications, and I'm not a medication person. So me and my wife agreed that because she works at the hospital, she know the side effects of certain medications, and
Mhm.
we didn't take it. So, but I stuck to one, and that was a high blood pressure medication. That's all I was taking, and they was trying to give me maybe 8 to 10 other pills to take. I said no. Let me lose weight. Let me get my body back in shape.
Mhm.
And I've been going to the doctor, getting things checked out, always trying to have that that preventive thing where nothing to sneak up on me and stuff like that. So today I seen my doctor, man, and she took me off of high blood pressure medication.
Amen.
And
Amen.
yeah. And that's a 11 years strong on that, man. So um it's just you start knowing your body, what, because me and my wife are saying something's just not right with this medication. We looked up on it and stuff like that, and we seen the side effects. And so this evening before I came on, I came back from seeing my doctor, and she took me off the blood pressure medication. And because my blood pressure's been like 117 over 74, 124 over 81. So it's been good.
Right.
It's been good.
I pray God
And
for
I
that.
give
Let
God
me
the
tell you what I heard. Oh, go on.
go
No,
ahead.
no, go on.
I
No,
said I
no, go
give
ahead.
you for that.
Yeah, yeah. So let me tell you what I heard. You came a point in your life when you had a made up mind. That's all I heard. I heard the
Yeah,
head of his house had a made up mind, partnered with his wife. The two of them came together, and you said, "Let's do it God's way." And sometimes that's the hardest way, and that is
yes.
changing your diet. But you
Yeah,
had a goal in mind. You said, "Honey, I'm not doing the blood pressure no more." And then God used man to say, "You're on the right track. So just
right.
keep on exercising, keep eating right." Now I know we have, when Thanksgiving come, everyone kind of cheats on Thanksgiving because we justify it. So we go one person's house, eat, we go another person's house, eat, get dessert, and then we all suffer on Friday. All of us get out of bed. So that's all right. There's no secret what God can do, what He's
Right.
done for others, for you. I see that Joe is back. I know he was working on some things. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share with you a poem that God gave me. I'm frozen now. Oh, there you go. There's a poem that God gave me. I wrote regarding Thanksgiving. I'm going to share that with you. Then I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, and then I'm going to turn it over to him. So it
Okay.
goes something like this. It's nice to be thankful every day. Putting God first to start your day. Mother and father are important too. Without your parents, what could you really do? So let's all be thankful for life and eternity, for that's the best plan for you and me. Be thankful. Um, the Bible says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. So we're
Mm,
praising the Lord tonight. We have a keynote speaker. He has a fantastic sermon. It's entitled, It's Time. Who is Joe Huddelston? I'm gonna tell you some things about Joe you may not know. Joe is a guy that's always been sets himself up to learn. Any situation he finds himself in, he looks and says, "What can I learn from this situation?" When we used to go to church together and sit down, uh, he always had a pen and paper, and he always took notes. This guy he's a note taker. If you talk to him on the phone and you're making sense, he's writing down notes. And he'll tell you the next time you talk, you said this. And he's a learned guy. So today, he's going to talk about It's Time. And I can't wait to hear that good news. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Mr. Joe Huddleston.
Hey, thanks, guys. I had initially, this is a few weeks back, had something else I really wanted to discuss. Um, but just being able to be flexible in life, and being able to hear some things. This is what came to me, and it's about time. Does anyone have a Bible handy? Glenn, you have a Bible handy?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Ecclesiastes 3. We're going to read this the famous wisdom that Solomon gave regarding time. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8.
Okay. This Glenn in California. That's what you're talking
Hey,
about?
Glenn, how you doing?
All right. Well, you want me to read
Okay.
that?
Sure, if you have it, sure.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you well. Yes, thank you.
All right. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and the time to sow, a time to keep silence and the time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace.
Time of peace. Yes, that's true. So as I began to think about what's urgent, in my head, and what I live, a few things came to the surface. So I want to preface everything I'm saying for those of you guys who don't really know me that well. I just want to say this: I'm very much concerned with people moving forward. I'm concerned about community growth and development. That people reach their potential and that they're doing what they're on this planet to do, what they're created for. So that's my foundation. I hope is consistent across the board with me, because that's very important in my life. And so I try to focus on those things. And so what I'm about to speak on tonight is tied to community, tied to men developing. It's time to winning. It's connected to all those things. So the first thing I like to say, because it's very important to me, I don't think Solomon mentioned it, but there's a time for healing. And in my case, how I look at it is I've got things to do, places to go, people to meet, and so forth. And I really want to do that and arrive at those locations as a healed person. So it's important for me, for all the right reasons, that healing come. And I'm at a point in this journey of almost 560 days when healing is exactly what I want right now. And that's what I'm speaking to, where in the beginning it wasn't like that. I was just saying, okay, what do you want me to learn? What am I supposed to learn now? And I know that I was supposed to put the brakes on. I get that. But what do you want me to learn now? So I feel that I'm learning some things, but now I'm saying, well, where else am I going next? And I'm looking forward to that healing time.
Amen.
So I'm going to move through some of these here. You guys can interrupt if you feel like it, but I'm going to move. I'm not going to do all I'm not going to do all of this, but I'm certainly spend a little time on some of these items. So the next thing I have is traction. It's time for traction. And I have to read. I don't have like a typing stand. So it's time for traction. We all agree that just spinning our wheels won't win the race. Now, there are running shoes, there's sneakers, there's basketball shoes, there's slippers, there's boots, there's cowboy boots and all kinds of things. And what we need to do is put the right shoes on for the journey.
That's right.
If we do that, we'll make the most traction. And so I have a joke that I do with Josiah. Terry and I, for those who don't know, we share a grandson. So Josiah has these certain shoes he wears. They're red, and they're pretty slippery. They have no traction. So we just call them sliders. And so sometimes in life we're sliding through.
Mm,
We're not really making traction. And what
wow.
I'm saying is we need to, in the same way that we put on the breastplate, the helmet, we need to put on the right shoes to make traction in life.
That's
And
right.
sometimes you don't wear the same shoe throughout your entire life. You switch up. So depending on what you're working with, you have to change accordingly, and that's metaphorically as well as physically. Here's another one. It's time for forgiveness. And I like to say it's difficult for some of us to forgive others, and also it's difficult for sometimes for us to forgive ourselves. But it's time for that, because that's kind of a baggage and a weight that we travel through life with, and we can actually do it. But sometimes it's very difficult. And I'm going to look at it as there's one place in the Bible where Elijah was talking to Elisha, and Elisha had asked him for a double portion of his spirit. He said, you know what? That's a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing. So
Right.
sometimes forgiveness is like that too. Forgiveness is a hard thing, but it's important that we understand the value of that, and as we go through our journey. So I wanted to say that to you. Some people struggle in this area, but this is one thing that I've learned. It's impossible to pray earnestly for someone who you hate or someone you're angry with. It's hard to pray earnestly for them. You can pray, you can say a prayer, but not earnestly. When you get into God working this person's life, you kind of move past the anger, move past the hatred and so forth. So it's better to be in that kind of framework, the frame of mind, of light. And I asked the question, what does light have to do with darkness? Light has very little to do with darkness. It will displace darkness. And so I'm looking at hatred and lack of forgiveness as darkness. And I say to you guys, choose light. Choose forgiveness, because time matters.
Hey, Joe,
Yes, sir.
why is it so hard to forgive first yourself and then others? Why is that such a challenge from your point of view?
I think it's because we don't think the way God does. And we think as an eye for an eye sometimes. And we're sensitive. So sometimes we're even
Joseph,
sensitive.
I'm hearing somebody's background talking or something. I can over
Okay,
you.
hold on a second. Hold on. I'm gonna have to move because there's people that just arrived in the office. So let me move myself someplace else, and I'll be right with you. Just give me a second. Chris, you want to pause the recording? And I'll just
something negative. If something negative happened in our lives, if we keep talking about it and telling people about it and rehashing it, it's not going to go away. It'll always be there, And so I like fresh thinking. I like, life is changing all the time. So be able to allow yourself to enjoy the freshness of life.
Amen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You preaching now. I'm gonna put you on for next week, man. You want to hold down. Hey, give us a fresh message. Come on, Brother Al. Don't say no to freshness now. You just told us. Keep something fresh. Come on.
Yeah, keep it fresh.
Thank you for that. I see Brother Joe is back. And at the end, we'll be able to talk and share some more. So we appreciate each one of you. And once again, I'm gonna turn it over to Brother Joe Huddelston. And it's
thank you, guys. We had some people who come into the office, and so it kind of made they're doing whatever they do over there. So sorry about that. I wanted to I'd like to add, basically I'm going to say the same thing you guys have already said, but what I prepared was it's time for closure. And it's because, well, you've already said why for so many reasons, but it could be a situation or it could be people. Sometimes you just have to shut it down and you got to move on. There's no other solution. Sometimes that's the way to go. So David, because some people are just like this, and David spoke to them. David said in Psalm 119, 115, he says, "Depart from me, ye evildoers, for I will keep the commandments of my God." So sometimes these situations and these people can cause you to sin or want to sin. and it's better to get them away from you so that you don't have to deal with that other part, that damnation to yourself. So again, in Matthew 7:23, Jesus said, and then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you all that work iniquity. He himself is saying, there are some people that I don't want to deal with. So depart from me. I don't want you in my sphere. I don't want you in my space. When he was tempted by Satan during his fast, he ended up telling Satan, get behind me, because it's written, you should only worship the Lord your God, and only him shall you serve. Certain Satan was trying to get him to do, you guys know the story, was trying to get Jesus to worship him, Satan. And Jesus clearly told him, get behind me, don't want anything have anything to do with you. And it's like, we have to recognize that some situations and some people are toxic for us, and we need to move on. And I'll say it's because time matters, and we don't have a lot of time to waste on those kinds of things. This is something that I wanted to share with you guys, because I've been thinking about, the relevance of us in particular, but there are people who might relate to this as well. So there's something I call a relevance quotient, and I'm gonna kind of say something that sounds a little weird. Don't worry about Joe. He's all hot air. Ignore him, and he'll go away. He's not on our level. His opinion doesn't matter. He's all bark and no bite. I think his little touch in his head. We need a go-getter on our team, and he's pretty much a loser. Now, some people might have that kind of statement. So I asked the question, do you think any of this is true? I mean, people, when they look at you, let's not listen to this guy. Let's not pay attention to what he has to say. It may not be anyone on this call, but certainly there are some people who would be perceived like that they don't have anything to say. And I say to those people, they need to change their relevance quotient. And what I mean by that is that there are things we can do to change our relevance. And here's just a few. When you talk, you can know what you're talking about. That goes a long way in having somebody take you seriously, right? You can wise up, and that means that that has to do with the soundness of your decisions are important, and that makes people look at you differently. When you make poor decisions, people begin to wonder about what's going on with you. You can be honest and truthful. These are other things that affect how people will perceive you. I'll say it like this: Trump might get away with lies, but I don't know if you and I will. So it's a good idea to continue to do right, speak truth. No one really respects a liar, So these are things, again, to tie into what makes us more relevant and how we can change that if that's an issue for us. We can say what we mean and mean what we say. And while humor is a good thing, there's no reason for us to be the class clown. That's not going to gain you respect of other people, and your relevance quotient will always remain low if you're perceived as the class clown, unless you're getting paid as a comedian. Okay, like Chris Rock might, he might do well with that, right? How about changing the way you speak? Even when you speak with your homies, you might change how you speak, because that does change how people perceive you. I remember having a conversation, and also how you look, right? So I remember talking with my brother one time, and back in those days, that was the Jerry curl days, and I try to make him realize that you're trying to get a job, and you're trying to go forward in your life, and you got all this oil leaking all over the place, and you're looking like James Brown, and I'm just saying, come on now, change the way you look, so that people will take you. Change the way you look so that people will take you seriously. Another way is to, English is an established language, right? So, there's some people who write the way they do they text. So they have this abbreviated kind of language, which which would not be taken very seriously. And I mentioned the dress. So my grandfather, he taught me a lesson. He taught me many lessons, but one of the lessons he taught me was that I had to have my hair combed, and I had to have my shoes clean. And it wasn't only me; it was all of my uncles. That was the deal. We always shine our shoes, and we always made sure our hair was done. Uncle Al, remember Wild Root?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Wild Root.
Wild Root.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I still have a bottle of Wild Root.
Okay. Yeah.
Wild Root.
So we had to. That was important for us, and so that made us more respectable to each other. But also, as people saw us, they didn't see us as some of the other guys down the street. We'd go to church, line up, and we all, for sure, we had our hair combed and our shoes were clean. I don't remember anything else. I don't remember if we had our clothes, but probably so. I just don't remember that part. And I say again, it's time to pay attention to that, so that we are taken more serious as a people. All right, let me move to something else here. Does anyone have any questions or like to add anything at this point?
Well, I kind of feel as though, the appearance of someone is basically a perspective of, who's perceiving it. Okay. And a jerry curl to one person may be that perfect hairdo. And the person that is perceiving it, because it's not like their hair, may perceive it as something that's negative.
Sure,
and which is wrong. They should not do that, I feel. I just don't agree with it's like this Kyrie Irving thing, that he's going through right now. I think he's so right in what he believes, what he's saying and putting forward. And I think that we as a people go through this stuff every day and unconsciously deal with it in a way that we're just giving into all of this wrongdoing, and I think it is time to make a stand and start saying no to some of this,
Sure. Well,
I mean,
I know I cut you. I wanted to say this quickly because what I'm trying to say is that people do judge a book by its cover.
yes.
And we don't always get a chance to get the microphone because of how we present ourselves. And that's something and I don't look like as an outsider to my brother. I look to my brother as a younger brother, and I have some experience in some small amount of success in the workforce.
Yes.
And what I was trying to teach him was that it's not how he saw himself, but rather it's how he would be seen by those who are potentially hiring him.
Right.
And so at least to have the awareness, have the awareness that it's not just what you think. It's somebody else going to hire you. You need to, even if you have all the right things, but if you don't represent the company, you're done.
Recently I went through my divorce, right? And before that I had long hair. I mean, I had braids and things. I felt it appropriate. I mean, I didn't necessarily want to cut my hair, but I knew that I would be perceived in a certain way if I were to wear the long hair and braids. Okay. So I did cut my hair, but the thing about it is, I think it was wrong I shouldn't have to do that. That's
sure.
the point.
Okay. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
And I agree with you. People perceive you in a certain way and they judge you and make decisions on you before you even say a word,
Sure. Exactly. Right.
Right. Sure. I agree with you.
Yeah. So let me, anyone else before you move on?
Joe, I just want to make one point. I like what you said, the dialogue between Jesus and Lucifer was one thing that I want to highlight, that Jesus always said, "It is written." So he always referred to the book of all books, the Bible, like we do now. He always said to them, "It is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God." It is written. So it's always good to have a baseline, a source that you get your information from.
Yeah. Okay, so let me throw this out there. It's time to be spirit-led. Now, most of us use GPS, or at least we have used GPS before. And, you know, although billions are spent in these systems, these satellite systems and all kinds of information systems that are part of the GPS atmosphere, the GPS landscape, all the technology that goes into it. It's not very good, if not very useful, if you don't have a starting point. In other words, if you don't know where you are and you don't know where you want to go, the system can't really help you. You need to at least know one or two of those things, or both, in order to try to get somewhere, to navigate someplace, right? You kind of have to have that. So we have people, you know, and I'm sure we know people who are not sure where they're going. And they're just not in a spot through life, and they're not looking to spiritual things. They're not trying to be spiritually led. So we can see them, you know, doing a whole bunch of stuff that's not of God, is not spiritual, doesn't bless people in the right way, and so forth. So I wanted to just leave you with this one, and I'm sure you guys have heard this. The Lord is my shepherd.
That's right.
I shall not want.
That's
He
right.
makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me by the still waters. He restoreth my soul and leads me through the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley, he restoreth my soul. Sorry. In paths of righteousness. Yea, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Be spirit-led, because time matters. And this is a simple thing that we always say, but when God leads us, it's unlike any other thing in life, because we might be able to reflect on a time when we weren't being led. But I can tell you from where I sit right now, having lived 65 years, that I feel like I'm on the right course for my life, and it's very much a lifesaver to me, because I don't feel like I'm wandering. I don't feel like it's, you know, I'm not sure of the path that I'm on. I believe that God has revealed himself to me in a very powerful way. So the things I do are for that kingdom's sake, you know, to help my fellow man to do what I can on this planet while I'm passing through. So I feel the leading of God in my life. And that doesn't mean, you know, obviously that, you know, I'm not without fault or flaw. It just means that my homing device has a certain center in my life, and I don't want to ever be without it. So I encourage, I know all of us on this call, I don't have to say it I'm kind of preaching to the choir, and I believe that the things that we discuss, not the individual specific things, but the lessons we learn from our conversations together as men. And I've told Terry this before, the things we learn are not just for this call. They are to help people beyond this call.
That's right.
Yeah, I completely believe that. So I'm always in the mode of learning, like Chris said, and this is one of the things as I was working through this, that I realized for myself that being spirit-led is the way to live. And so when we're trying to, you know, we teach people and to work with people and so forth, that's what I think we ought to be doing, helping them to be spirit-led, because God has a plan for them too, and it's not necessarily what I'm doing, but to be connected to God's spirit in their own personal way. I think that's the best thing we could do, is lead someone to the water that we know is good. And so I'll leave that there.
Amen.
Yeah, I'll just say something quickly. It's time to live the life that we know we should live, and it's It's very important. I'll say what Jesus said to Judas. He said, whatsoever you do, do quickly.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going to do it. You know? And so
Yeah.
obviously not in the negative sense, but whatever we're going to do, let's get on with it. Let's do it. And so I'm going to say to everyone in this call, if I can help you to do what God's telling you to do, I'm willing to help you. And, you know, although, you know, I have some limitations, my brain's good. And so if I can help you, don't hesitate, because that's my assignment. That's who I am. That's my assignment. Okay. So don't feel like you can't, you know, you can ask me anything. If I can't, I'll let you know. But if I can do it, I'm going to do it because that's my assignment. Okay. All right. Let me move on to something. How much time do I have, Chris?
You know, take your time, man. It's your time.
Okay.
Your assignment.
I'm picking and choosing what I'm actually speaking about because I have, you know, a lot, but not everything is appropriate for every situation. So I won't bring everything up. Has any of you ever been out sailing? I think my Uncle Alan, he always wanted a catamaran, but anyone else ever been sailing?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So sailing is pretty amazing when you think about how it actually happens. So for those who might not know, when you're in a sailboat, you don't necessarily sail straight to your destination. In fact, it's usually you don't sail straight to your destination. You have to work with the wind.
That's right.
So however the wind is coming, you adjust your sails accordingly. And basically you're doing a zigzag pattern to get to your destination. It's a zigzag pattern usually, right? But one thing you never do is you never take your eyes off where you're going.
Mhm.
You got to know where you're going. And when that happens, you can actually sail towards your goal, towards your destiny until you actually arrive there. So what I'd like to say here is that sometimes it's time to change course. And so if you find you're on a course that's not taking you to your destination, it's time to change course. And so we all have some things in life that we've dealt with. We might have started out on certain careers and we realized, you know, that's not really what I should be doing. Let me change course. So I use this sailing analogy because we to make the point of this. There's some winds in life that we don't control, and sometimes we have to be flexible in getting to our destination. We got to work with the wind that we're given. In those occasions where we have a wind behind us, we can use the largest sail on the sailboat, which is called a spinnaker. We can use that sail, and we can sail straight to our destination. But it's not always that we have that kind of wind, and we have to work with whatever wind we have. And so I'm thankful. Like I look at you know what happened to me so many days ago. It's like about 560 days. It made me change course. I was on a course already. I had gotten credentialed to teach at the prison, and I was doing that and so forth. But I'm on a different course now. I'm actually doing what I always wanted to do. And so if I wasn't flexible, I would be miserable. But I'm not miserable. I'm very happy, even though I have some limitations. This is all you guys, I'm one happy guy. I'm a happy guy. So, and it's because I'm doing what I believe I'm here to do. And so I had to get off of one course in order to get onto a different course. The one that was killing me was the one I got off of. So I'm thankful for that. And it wasn't the way I planned it, because I'm doing a zigzag now. It wasn't the way I planned it, but I'm so thankful that happened. And so let me say this quickly. It's time to listen. And this is what I mean. I'm going to read Joel 2:28, and you guys have heard this before. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And here's the point. It's time to listen. God will reveal the hidden things to us. If we listen. If we're not listening we're talking all the time, if we're just doing stuff and we don't hear God, then we don't have his direction.
Mhm.
And it's prophesied that in the latter days that we will see visions, that we will have, that we will prophesy, that we will dream dreams.
Mhm.
And I firmly believe that this applies to us and it applies to our time.
Mm.
And because we need, as a people, we need vision. We need an idea of what's what for us.
Mhm.
Not to just watch the world go by, watch the decades go by, watch the centuries go by, and we have no vision. So God is able to deliver a vision to us if we listen. And I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, I know that's how I get communicated with. I usually get, some kind of inspiration that way, and it helps me to navigate my life and so forth. But it's my wife has seen it come to pass, and I believe that if we listen, God is faithful and just, and he will reveal those things that we need to know so that we will not fall into a hole that can be avoided. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that?
Well, I think you're inspiring. First of all, I think of you as being an inspiring nephew. Okay,
Thank you.
and I just love the fact that you are not dwelling on anything negative about yourself, and basically rehashing it and just making it come back. You're going on like your spirit is very strong.
Yeah.
And I enjoy seeing you in your efforts to be, that way. And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing, actually.
Yes. I thank you, and I'm very happy that you're joining us on the call too. It's a rekindling of a relationship that kind of split for so many years, decades. But
Yes.
I feel it's awesome, man. It's really really awesome.
Mhm.
I feel the same way. I mean, we are supposed to inspire each other, and I'm inspired. I talk with each one of you separately, and I'm inspired, and I'm just I can't be in the dumps. There's too much going on. There's
Mhm.
too much, too much, too much we got to do.
Mhm.
Too much stuff to fix. Too many things to invent.
Yeah.
So I really don't have time for it. And my family knows that I guard my spirit as much as possible.
Mhm.
And I had my grandkids here today. We taught them how to solder, so they know how to solder now. And they're 9 and 11, and they know how to solder now. And so that's really the joy I get out of things like that. Stuff that I'm thankful to have a moment, that I can do with them. And it took time, but
Mhm.
and I was late preparing for this, but I had already been preparing for over a month. So I'm
Mhm.
comfortable, I didn't stress out because I had a moment and we just took care of it. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I have a couple more that I'd like to put out to you guys, or just a couple more. So this one is called that I just look at it like it's time to figure it out. There's no time to be perplexed without answers or without understanding. We have to seek knowledge and truth. We have to do the research. We have to ask questions. In Luke 11:9 and 10, these are words that Jesus spoke. He said, "And I say unto you, ask and it shall be given you.
Mhm.
Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be open unto you. For
Mhm.
every one that asks receives, and he that seeks finds, and to him that knocks it shall be opened." And so in another place in James, he says, this is Paul. If you lack, and we've said this before, if any of you lacks wisdom,
Yes.
let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally without reproach, and it will be given to him. So
Yes.
we live in the information age. It's kind of hard to see why someone doesn't have some answers to stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that you can research and so forth, but there are some people who are still struggling with this, and I don't like to see people struggling.
Mhm.
So I would just say to us, let's do the thing to not I'm not only speaking to us. Remember, this is not just for us. This is for other people who haven't figured it out. We've got to figure it out. we don't get to go through life without figuring some stuff out. We learn by as some people might think, the hard way, or we learn the easy way. But there's some things we have to learn in life in order to make it in this world. And so it's important that we figure some stuff out, because time does matter. And I'm going to end maybe with one more of these here. One more thing.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to end with, okay, so this is what I wanted to say on this one. Bear with me. I have to get my pages straight now. Hang with me a second.
Will do.
All right. So yeah, I would like to say this. This is the last thing I'm going to say this, and then I'll be wrapping up right now. So I believe in action-oriented empathy. I'll say it again, action-oriented empathy. It's one thing for me to say, oh man, I'm sorry to see you going through whatever. And it's another thing to say that and then help you.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. I'm at the point, okay, we got to do whatever we can. So I'm going to say this here. Some questions that people might ask, who cares? Whatever happens, well, whatever, whatever happens. Why should I get involved? I'm just one person. What can I do? Right. And I think that we can disregard those kinds of things. We could do a lot. I think we have to do what we can do. And I think that's part of rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So in this, like, for example, in this political climate that we have, we should use the system, use the mechanism, and go out and vote. That's one way of making a difference. But I wanted to say that in order to function properly in society, here's a couple things that we have to do. We have to be aware of what's happening in our local, state, and federal governments. We must use our voices to influence the outcomes. So we can't just know that something's wrong and then we don't do something, right? Mm-hmm. We have to seek opportunities to make social change. We have to think globally and act locally. We also have to think godly and act locally, right? We have to, places that we make an impact would be in schools, city councils, and boards, and nonprofit organizations, community centers. We can make an impact on things by being engaged in these areas. We can pick our issues. Our issues might be spiritual development, education and training, housing, employment, the environment, social justice, medical care, disaster preparedness, voter registration, food and resource distribution. Any one of those areas are useful for kingdom building.
That's right.
Any one of these areas. Let me just plow through it real fast one more time. Spiritual development, what we're doing right now, and also other kinds of study. Education and training. This is what I do on Wednesdays with these teenagers. I'm training them on how to use their hands and how to use their heads, right? Housing. There's some people who are struggling with homelessness. If we were involved in a housing kind of, say even if it's a nonprofit, then we could be useful to mitigate some of the pain and suffering, especially in this cold weather, for those that don't have a place to live.
That's right.
We got to be engaged in order to be effective, right?
That's right.
So the employment, how many of us are hiring people? How many of the people we know are hiring people? So we have the ability, and we have to have the mindset to employ people, our own people at least, right? Create a job. I'm hoping that, I can do that. I did it before, and hoping that I could do it in the future, that I could actually provide some employment for someone so that they can have a better life. We can decide to be part of the environment. I'm teaching my young grandkids, to pay attention to stuff. Try not to have single-use things. You have a plastic cup, wash it out and use it again. That kind of stuff, right? And I got rid of straws around. My granddaughter loves straws. So I'm not giving her any straws because she's just going to throw it in the trash can. You have a napkin, use it twice. Don't throw it away. All you did was wipe some crumbs away. Just use it again. These are simple things that we can, get involved in. There's obviously more advanced stuff in terms of the society and the environment. Social justice, that's a big one. Glenn spent 27 years as an educator in the prison system. Mali spent a total of 2.5 inside. And what an experience. 2.5 years working in a prison. That's an experience. But we can see some injustice. You know, some of the guys, you know, did something to be there. I mean, they all did something to be there, but, or most of them, but some of them need to be rehabilitated, right? But we can play a role in social justice. We don't have to, you know, be punitive in our own way. That's for the society to take care of. And I'll say it quickly again: disaster preparedness, voter registration, food and resource distribution. And the final thing I'd like to say is this: it's time to open up all of our cells to achieve maximum speed and distance. It's time to know what time it is before we hear those words, "It is finished," and it's over for us. We have to do what we can while we have the time, because we're going to all hear those words, "It's finished." It's too late. You can't make any more impact. So that's what I would hope, and that is that, and encourage anyone who's listening. If God's impressing upon you to do something, then do it. Do it with all your heart. Do it with all your mind, with all your might. And I believe that He'll bless your efforts, and that you know. And there are people who are just waiting for someone like you, someone like me, to move forward in what God has given us. And so even if it's even if what He's given you is in an early stage, I believe you got to get to the point where you say, "Though no go with me,